tag day is coming up. We'll get to that part because it starts tomorrow. I mean, there's really not a lot of conversation here. They're going to tag Josh Allen. I mean, the deal's not done. They're not getting it done in the next 2 weeks. They're going to tag him, and we'll talk more about the tag tomorrow. But this is really just a formality, most likely, for the Jags. What I love about this is I believe this is going to happen. You have until March 5th to make it happen. And we'll go to the Combine next week. We'll hear from Trent Baalke, and we'll hear from Doug Peterson. And my guess is they haven't tagged them by then.
Okay.
And they'll be like a little coy about it. Like, well, you're tagging them. I mean, you basically admitted it 3 weeks ago in a press conference that you're tagging them.
Do you don't think there's any possibility that he actually gets a contract done by that time? Because, like, to me,
No.
like, what is there to figure out?
I mean, come on. You've been in this business a long time. I mean, you could say
Sure.
that for a lot of guys. And, I get it. I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's really that hard. I mean, but they're going to make it hard. I didn't think Evan Ingram's was really that hard. They're going to make it hard.
Okay.
Did you think Evan Ingram's was hard?
I thought Evan Ingram's was hard, but wasn't there a lot of, like, in terms, like, we saw a decent amount from him, but there was still some of the unknown where he may have asked for more than the Jaguars wanted to give him? Like, for me, we've seen Josh Allen. We know what he's capable of. You've had how many years now to watch what he can do? And he had his best season, obviously, last year and put up monumental numbers. So if you have all that data in front of you, I don't get what the hard part's going to be in terms of, okay, he's probably going to be making Montez Sweat, Myles Garrett type of money.
Yeah, I think the tricky part, Austen, is, and this is just a business, is they want to see where free agency. Wouldn't you want to see where free agency lands? Like, don't you almost like this if you're Josh's camp? Because you see where the top pass rushers end up. Like, if there's somebody out there, I don't even know, somebody out there that's still going to get big money, they can actually set the market up higher, and you're coming off a 17.5 sack season. See, the interesting part about the Ingram one was he actually lost on that bet. Like, his camp lost a little bit because if you go back to last year's tight end market, we thought it was going to be pretty high and guys were going to get paid. It didn't really work out that way. Like, the guys did not get paid as much as we thought they were going to get paid in free agency at the tight end position. And I'm not I don't think Ingram was a big loser here. I just don't think the market moved to where they thought it was going to move. And then that probably made it a little bit stickier for the Jags and Ingram side because they had something in their mind. Jags were like, oh, wait a minute. The market says it's right here. Like, we love you, but we're not going that high. Like, why would we go that high? I think it usually will work out a little different for a pass rusher. So in one respect, like, if I'm Josh's camp, I'm like, yeah, please tag me. Because then we can see where the market goes, and then we can play off that because we got a pretty good card to play. We're 26 years old, and we just came off a 17.5 sack season, and you can't lose me, quite frankly.
Yeah, so here's some of the bigger names that we have in terms of free agents. Brian Burns. We have
Burns, by the way, will be a
Chase.
great one here because he's a young guy. He's a talented guy, but he's coming off like an 8-sack season. And they're going to throw the bag at him most likely, or he's going to get that, I would think. But Josh doubled him up this year.
Mm-hmm. We got Chase Young, Yannick Ngakoue making another appearance, Adarius Smith, Marcus Davenport, Randy Gregory, Danielle Hunter.
Danielle Hunter. So those guys are a little bit, it's not apples to apples with like those guys because they're older. Like Danielle Hunter's 30 years old, so we'll see what happens with him. But the market, the average year might say the same thing. Listen, Josh is going to win out in this deal no matter what. What I'm saying is I highly doubt the Jags and Josh Allen get a deal done by March 5th, which means they have to tag him. They will tag him. That's who they're going to use the tag on. It starts tomorrow. They're not going to announce it tomorrow. Like, I don't understand why they wouldn't announce it tomorrow, but because they're going to play with the March 5th deadline. They're going to say, all right, let's really talk, see if we can get something worked out. They're not. They're going to tag him, and then we'll figure out a deal, and it will last all the way to the summer for some dumb reason. But that's just the way these things go. I'd be surprised if it goes any different. All right, did you see all this weekend? Like, why all this chatter about the Calvin Ridley stuff? Like, are we surprised by this? Did the national folks just say, oh, yeah, we got to do something about the Jaguars, so let's check in on that Calvin Ridley deal? Is this just because we know it down here? Basically, Schefter reported the whole thing that we know. If they if they extend him, it's going to be a second-round pick to Atlanta. So the conversation was basically like, well, they're definitely not going to extend him before the league year. They'll just sign him in free agency instead. this is a weird thing that's just started circulating because of Jeremy Fowler, who reported something just on every team in the NFL. And, of course, Schefter throws it out there, and everybody's like, whoa, the Falcons could get a second-round pick. It's like, hello, this is out there.
Yeah, it's definitely out there. This definitely wasn't catered to the Jacksonville community. I think this was catered to more of the casual NFL fan who probably isn't into contracts so much, especially what the Jaguars contracts are. But this is what happens when it can be a little slower of an NFL time. You essentially live in an echo chamber, and everyone's trying to get their clout and their retweets and their likes and everything. So, yeah, one person reports it, and then all of a sudden you have like 25 different robots reporting at the exact same time as well, because that's just the way that social media works. So obviously this wasn't any surprise to anybody in Jacksonville, but once again, to the casual fan who maybe didn't follow the Calvin Ridley deal so closely, it was more catered to them.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. My bad.
My big question, though, is if you franchise tag him, is that going to cost you a second or a third? Because you technically haven't signed him yet. You just franchise tag him.
I think the terminology is extension. So I think tag. I think with tag, I figured we determined this now. I'm confused, but I think tag would stay with the third-round pick. I think extension is the terminology here, and that's why signing is not. Like, so signing, you're okay. That happens after the league year, and then you don't give up that second-round pick. It stays a third. Like, the third's already gone. Yeah. But see, the interesting part about the third-round pick here for the Jags is they're going to get a compensatory pick. So they don't mind giving up that third-round pick for the chance it took to get Ridley, because they're actually going to get a third-round pick anyway, so they don't, now it might be in the same spot, but they actually do get a third-round pick, so they really don't lose one. Sure, you could make the case they would have had two if they didn't do this deal, but again, this was worth doing that, especially since they got the compensatory. The second-round pick brings in a whole new thing. I mean, teams really value the second-round pick. It's a 48th pick overall, higher than the Jags thought they would be picking. They thought they'd go to the playoffs, maybe be picking 55 or something like that, or even better, but it's 48. So you don't want to give that up if you don't have to. But here's what people are throwing out there, and they think this is realistic. Some people, I believe, think this is realistic. I don't want to speak for everybody. But the way I'm kind of interpreting it is there are folks that think the Jags can pull this off, where you don't extend Ridley. And we listen, here's the deal. We know they're not going to tag him because they're going to use the tag part on Josh, so they can have time to work out a deal. But they think they can not extend him, get to the league year on March 13th at 4 o'clock, let him hit free agency, and sign him. And I'm sitting here saying, you're right. You're right. They are not going to do that, Austen Lane. I thought it was incredible that they got Ridley. I love the move to get Ridley, the risk-reward about it. I give Bulky a lot of question for that. This would be 10 times better than that if he's able to do this. If he's able to send Calvin Ridley to free agency, hit the open market, where, by the way, he might be the number one receiver on the board once Cincinnati tags T. Higgins or whatever else happens. He could be the number one receiver on the board, or two or three. There's not a bunch out there. And there's a lot of teams with a bunch of money and could use receiver help. So if you think that Ridley's hitting the open market, even for a minute, and he's coming back to Jacksonville, I'll laugh at myself and be dead wrong if that happens, but I'll give plenty of flowers to Trent Baalke if he's able to pull that off. I do not see that happening.
Would it be considered tampering if they went, hey, Calvin, we'll give you so-and-so this deal if you choose to walk away but then come back on the free agent label?
Well,
Couldn't they do that, or is that tampering?
That's what people first of all, there's legal tampering on Monday the 11th.
Okay.
Sure, you could. I got to believe, Austen, you can do that. You know this business better than I do. I think you could do that. But I mean, could that happen? Yes, I get the way that could happen. But we talked to Calvin Ridley at the end of the year, and he was almost like, well, there's 30. I think he said something like, well, there's 31 teams out there, something like that,
sure.
Right? I mean, this is his last chance to get a big payday. He might have places he wants to go versus not go. Maybe that becomes a win for the Jags. Maybe they get very fortunate. Maybe he loves it here. I didn't get the vibe like he loves it here so much that he is not going to go anywhere else. I also don't get the vibe he doesn't like it here. I think he'd like to be back here. But if I'm his agent and I'm Ridley, I'd like to go where the money is at 30 years old. So I'll be dead wrong on this one. And not even wrong. I'll just be so impressed if they're able to pull something like that off. I do believe you could have those kind of conversations. Like, hey, we've got to tag Josh. We've got to use it here. We don't want to give up the second-round pick. But, I mean, listen, Ridley really has to play nice here, Austen, for that to happen. Wait, you don't want to use the tag on me. You don't want to extend me because you don't think I'm worth giving up a second-round pick. Well, let me do everything in my power then to help you out as an organization, unless they really make a nice deal on Wednesday, March 13th at 4 o'clock.
So you're thinking Calvin Ridley is going to get re-signed before Josh Allen then? Or do you think Calvin Ridley – I mean, what do you think is going to happen then? Do you think the Jaguars let Calvin Ridley go, or do they re-sign him?
I think the way this is shaping up, I think there's two things. I think they should re-sign him and give up the second-round pick, unless they've got a hell of a plan at wide receiver. I don't give a damn about the second-round pick. I know they're going to give a damn about the second-round pick.
As opposed to a third-round pick.
Yeah,
okay.
They are. You know how these guys work. They love it. They love the damn picks.
Yeah, those six-round picks are just
Well, second rounds are different than
I know, but I'm just saying, yes, they love their picks.
They love their picks.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're wrong in that. Like, a second-round pick is a significant player. Think about who they've had over there. I mean, Walker Little's been good. Cam Robinson's been good. I mean, you've got guys that Jawan Taylor was good. I mean, we can go up, down the list, right? I mean, they're important players to the roster. And the Jags have more than one hole, of course. But I am predicting that they don't extend him, they don't give up that second-round pick, and they don't get him back. I just don't see him coming back to Jacksonville.
Isn't that kind of a waste?
Well,
because then you essentially give up a third-round pick for a rental, a one-year rental. And I get a third-round pick's not a second-round pick, but a third-round pick is designed to contribute to your team for years and years to come.
Well, let me add,
if that's the case, then, hey, Atlanta Falcons, congratulations.
Yeah, but I think it was a risk worth taking to help your quarterback out and see where he's at. And I just don't know if there's enough there to say, okay, we can – if he had 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns, or if they had gone, whatever, there's just like a hesitation on Ridley. If you hesitate, do you go on this and giving up the second-round pick? And the bottom line is I do think they're going to offer Austen. Okay. I think they're going to want him. I just think they're not going to win. They're not going to win that battle in the open market. I'd be stunned if they did.
But you just sat here and told me that he's the best possible option in free agency.
That's what I think.
Okay, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people would think, right? Because Mike Evans probably getting tagged or whatever.
Evans.
Obviously, T. Higgins.
Well, he's probably not going to get tagged. Okay, he's an expensive one, too.
You don't think they're going to tag him?
Well, I saw this week the tag would cost him like $32 million or something.
So maybe they re-sign. Yeah. Nevertheless, he might be the best option in free agency for the wide receiver. So if you let him walk, then what's the plan? What are you telling Trevor Lawrence then?
Well, I think that's the whole point of the conversation. They better have a plan. If their plan is to just sit there and be like, well, we don't want to give up the second-round pick. We're going to let them get to 4 o'clock on March 13th, and we'll see if we are the lucky winners in the sweepstakes. I think that's a bad way to go. Now, what's their backup plan? Well, you could try T. Higgins and all that stuff. That ain't happening because I think he's going to get tagged. Well, then you go to the draft. I mean, you're going to draft a wide receiver.
In the first round?
Well, I don't know about first round. No, I don't think they'll do it in the first round. But you have Christian Kirk and you have Zay Jones, and I think you'll lose Ridley. Yeah. And you got to go try to replace it. I mean, that's why we had conversations last week about, like, go up and get Marvin Harrison, or like you were saying, go make a way to get T. Higgins, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still all aboard the trade Calvin Ridley in the first pick of this year's draft for T. Higgins.
And maybe that's but my point is they're going to have to get to that point unless they want to go re-sign. When we were the GM last week, one of my moves was your move was to do something like that, somehow creatively get to T. Higgins via trade, etc. My move was give up the second-round pick and re-sign Calvin Ridley because I don't know what's behind door number 2. Maybe they have a better idea what's behind door number 2. They better.
They have to, yeah.
And listen, I'm not telling you it's impossible to do what some people are talking about they could do and re-sign him at the start of the league year. I just think it's very difficult, like very, very difficult, because my guess is there's a price point somewhere in there for the Jags. there might not be that price point for another team or two or three that's looking for a wide receiver that would go get Calvin Ridley. So maybe the Jags have confidence they can make this happen. Maybe those talks do take place. Maybe it gets to that point. But you know what? I think that is playing with fire, and that's why I would sign him before that even takes place and give up the second-round pick. But I just don't see the Jags doing it.
See, and this is why I was so adamant, and I get what you're going to say. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes, possibly, it can. This is why I was so adamant about you get the deal done with Josh Allen as fast as possible. Yeah. As soon as the season was over, you start talking to him because then you franchise tag Calvin Ridley, and now you kind of have a little more bargaining in terms of if you want to get rid of him, well, then let's hear some trade offers.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to keep him, then pay him on the franchise tag. Like that to me is why I put up so many red flags when I was like, well, we haven't really talked to Josh Allen quite yet. He's the biggest cog in this whole machine right now, and you haven't talked to him? You haven't reached out to him yet? Okay, you have time to do that, but once again, once you get Josh Allen done, then it's Calvin Ridley's turn. You know, it all falls into line here. If you can't get Josh Allen done, yeah, then go ahead and tag him, but now you're losing on Calvin Ridley because either you got to pay him, which you'll probably ask a lot more than honestly what he's going to be worth, or you let him go, and then you wasted a third-round pick on essentially a rental for a year.